Contact. So we're back in time, about a week, us putting the engine in. No real dramas here actually. Once we got it on the hoist, what we've done before we obviously started lifting it in the air, as you can see there's no gear stick, so you remove the circlip, make sure the spring doesn't go flying across the room, and then that just makes things so much easier to spear the engine through that firewall. You'll see my engine hoist is actually too wide for the wheelbase of the MGA, so we actually have to get a floor jack and lift up the subframe. You can see that on the picture to right of screen now. All we're doing here is just popping in the engine mount bolts and playing around. I actually doubled that green strapping, worked really well for lifting. The way the manual says to do it is actually to obviously attach some bolts and chain to the two studs that come out of the rocker cover there, the valve train. But they're 5/16 bolts, and that's a lot of weight for them to be holding. So I went this route. However, I will admit to the fact that I essentially doubled it under and we locked it in place, and so I had to cut that off to get rid of it. More helpers appearing on bottom of screen. That's another Ian and Mark. We're basically here just getting things snugged down, putting the radiator in, filling that with some fluid, and then as I'm turning the crank, you can see here I'm just playing around with the socket. Mark is filling up the tubes in the passages with oil from an oil can, just to get rid of any potential spaces for when we try and crank it to get the oil pressure up. We didn't get the car started today. We got the oil pressure up, however we had to play about with the timing before we could get it kicking over. But thank you to all the assistants. People flocked in the day to see what was going on, and things went a lot quicker when there was 4 people in the garage. So we'll cut back to present day now. Alright guys, welcome to the garage. This is part 10. By now I've admitted to my dirty secret that I was going to fake the engine startup, but I couldn't do it to myself or to you, so I'm overdubbing this in the editing process just to give you a walk around of the setup. It turned over nicely after we sorted out the timing, so you can see all the different camera angles I was trying to capture, trying to do something a little bit new with the video editing. I will get better. So just as a walk around on the initial setup of the car, I added in the old exhaust. It doesn't have a muffler at the back, and I didn't show the footage of this, but it absolutely covered the garage in carbon when we were getting excited and revving the hell out of the thing. Gearbox is in. The only thing that was the issue, as I've mentioned already, was just you need to take the gear stick out to snug it under the firewall there. It's all been topped up with gear oil. Engines had some oil up to between the max and the min lines. The valve train had some oil over it. Gas canister, it's Ian's, just a simple stopcock kind of valve straight into the carb, which didn't give me any issues, although there is a little bit of a wet patch underneath, so I've got a rebuild kit for that. I'll do in a subsequent video. That's the Weber 45 DCOE. It does have a little choke cam and a dial on the side for the throttle. It hangs a fair bit off the engine. Obviously it wasn't the one that comes with it. The SU carbs are the original ones, so that manifold is kind of taking a fair bit of weight, and it just fits under the scuttle panel, so we'll see how we do with that. There's just a spacer in there. Those bolts you actually have to give a little bit of clearance, so you need a feeler gauge. You don't snug them all the way tight, apparently. I machined little spacers up, those little washers, and those ones they're sandblasted. The radiator's just been sort of jerry rigged again. I just got those kind of little bits of timber and put holes through at the same level. However, you can see here I didn't actually put the bolt through at the right levels, so I've got one extra bit of timber underneath there, but I've since sorted that. That worked really well on the day actually. The The radiator hoses are not the original ones. That should be a corrugated hose at the top hose. New Jubilee clips, but the old radiator hose there, and I've bought a newer one for the lower radiator hose. Do you see my test light there as I go through the timing with you later? The issue with this whole thing to get the fan sorted was the water pump. I've got two different water pumps. One was too long, one was too short. The fan pulley would foul, or it would be too far away from the sort of the mounting hole. So I ended up putting that on my lathe and parting it off and bringing it back a centimetre and then welding it together. And then with the new water pump and a new fan, it doesn't hit the crank pulley, and it's all snugged down nicely. So quite chuffed with that bit of work. Generator has been installed and is tight, and the fan belt tension is good. It's obviously not charging or anything like that yet. So that coil pack there is apparently that bracket is not necessarily the normal one. Often they get mounted on the scuttle panel. That's what I'm demonstrating here. And that red lead there, that jumper wire, is the lead for the timing. So the HT leads are the same original ones that came out of it. You can see I labelled them and numbered them per cylinder. The spark plugs are new because one of the plugs wasn't working. What I was just demonstrating there is setting it to top dead center for the timing purposes. So I'll show you here how we get that timing light going for distributor. This is my new garage setup. I think I was showing off here. That's the 1 5/16 socket for turning the crank and the pulley. And we'll swap over to a different screen now, or a different camera view, to show you getting that test light working. Okay, keep your eyes peeled on the test light. Here we go. So we want that just when it's about to turn on. There we go. Alright, so now I'll go back and I'll snug up the distributor bolts, and we can get to turning on the fuel and seeing if we can fire this up. Okay guys, so a couple of minutes just to set up. We'll have multi-camera view here. What we've got is we've got fuel on, we've got water in the radiator. What I'm going to do now, just to show you the setup here, so that's straight from the motor, from the engine mount. I've got the ground, I've got my hot lead coming round to this side of the starter pull, and then we're going to be heading onto starter motor. Distributor's hooked up to the coil, but I've not hooked anything up to this side, to the hot side of the coil yet, because what I want to do is just kick it over and get the oil pressure up before I snugged on all these hoses. This one in particular is a difficult one to get to. I'm going to have to cut that bolt off with a hacksaw for the next guy that owns this car, so he doesn't have a hellish time getting it off. When this was out, I've just dribbled oil down in there just to basically get oil in all these sort of potential spaces, so it doesn't have as much work to do to clear the air. Yeah, it's going to be a fair amount of kicking over to fill that with oil. So I'm not planning any explosions just now. However, we will just keep an eye on that oil pressure gauge and see how we go. So keep your eyes peeled, and I'll give you some focus. Here we go. Come on! Yes, climbing, 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 come on. Again, a sore finger. We want to get to 60, at least 60. Come on. Yeehaw! Oh, I think we're dropping pressure because my finger's
That's the mark I've made from pressing that starter. I think we'll do that a bit smarter next time. Okay guys, all I'm doing here is I've got another jumper wire hot lead from hot side of the battery to the coil, and I've already tested this, and you'll see we get a little spark, so we know we're good there. So essentially that's going to energise the coil. We'll see if the battery's got enough grunt to it. If not, I'll hook up my jumper pack. I've got some gloves on now so I don't damage my finger, and let's see if we can get this thing kicking over. You might see me drop this phone, and we'll pick it up on the other cameras. Essentially what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to play with this little cam here is the choke, and the disc, this thing here is the throttle cable. Obviously there's no cable attached, so if you do see me running around, I'm just going to try to massage them. Contact. Woo! We've got okay, there's a little oily spot on the floor. I'm not too disturbed about that because I've been playing with oil all of yesterday, and something's making a noise there, but let's hope that's just some gas escaping and not from me. Wow. All right, well, thank you to Ian and Ian who were here to help me. They essentially set this up and ready to go, playing with the timing. But we got the right oil pressure, nothing flew off. I'll just see how hot. It's not hot. Starter's a little bit warm, but that's probably when we're kicking it over to get the oil pressure up. Nothing's hosing out of the radiator. I'm making an absolute mess of my garage with carbon coming out of that exhaust pipe. I'm going to have to spend a bit of time cleaning that up. I'll just turn the fuel off while I remember. Well, I didn't think that would go so smoothly. I'm a bit shocked. Maybe this will be a small, not as big a video as I expected. Well, that was it. Give us a shout if you're at the stage of starting yours. I know a lot of people that are following with this build. Obviously I've been going for 2 years now, so many of you are probably already finished, but this is a 1800 MGB engine, first startup in, well, at least 3 years, and a success. It needed new spark plugs and a bit of finessing with the timing, but I can't be upset with that. That sounds sweet. For it being a rebuild, I'd never heard this engine run when I bought this car, and this was an unknown, and I'm still going to rebuild that even though it's working, because I think if I'm going to have shiny, I need to polish that up a bit anyway. And while I'm at it, there's a few things with that carburetor that aren't ideal. Just looking at a few YouTube videos, you can kind of just make it in there. There should be a cover plate in there and a little gasket. It goes into the cam that controls the, actually I think it's the cam that controls the throttle, not actually it's the rod that goes and controls those two butterfly valves, not the choke. But anyway, it should be covered up. There's going to be all sorts of garbage that goes in there otherwise, and I obviously need to find some sort of either ram tubes or a sock to go over the air filter there. The problem being that when you install the body, I don't think I'm going to have the carburetor on that because we're just so tight for space. From memory, the body, when it sat, was so close to the edge of the carburetor. This wasn't a carburetor, obviously. Our setup that goes in an MGA, it should be the SU carbs. So I don't think I'll be able to get any nice shiny chrome ram tubes or anything. I think what I'll essentially have to do is try to find just a big sock that goes over there as an air filter. But I am a happy man. well, we'll see if we can edit this together to show you different angles, but really can't beat that sound. That was sweet. Not any marks from gearbox, obviously. We need to start putting things back together again. One of the first things I'm going to have to do is get this gauge sent off. I said in a very early video, the temp sender unit got all fouled up in the block, got all corroded. And it's a capillary tube filled with diethyl ether under a vacuum, so that's not something you can do yourself. So I'm going to have to send off this whole gauge with that red tubing and get that refilled and a new temp sender unit on, and see if they can just smarten that up a little bit. You can take the glass off. I might end up doing that with the other gauges and just giving everything a nice clean and polish, but to get it all calibrated and things is the way to go. Alright, I'll sign off. Less prattling from me. Please leave comments below, subscribe. I'm going to try and get these a little bit more regularly. I've got some long service leave coming up from work, so I'm going to be playing with this more and more. And the next stage is get wiring, and wiring has arrived. I'll run you through that next video. Fuel line routed, battery cables, transmission tunnels on. We'll talk all sorts of stuff next time about flooring and insulation for heat. You can see how close, when you've got wooden floor panels here, how much heat is going to be coming off that exhaust pipe. And so what a lot of the guys I've been seeing doing is been mounting through their floors heat shields. So I think that's a very smart thing to do as well. Maybe I'll investigate how you can get a heat shield down the firewall and wrapping under the whole body there. You essentially don't want any engine heat coming into the passenger compartment from the transmission tunnel or from the engine or from the exhaust pipe. It's going to make being a driver and passenger particularly unpleasant, especially in the temperatures we have in Australia in the summer. So all fun, things to come. Smarten up the garage a bit for you guys. I'm still waiting on some shells for that, but I've got my new workbench set up. Another tool chest. I need to get sponsored by someone. If you're out there and you work for Super Cheap Auto and you want to send me some free tools, I'd happily accept them and showcase your new vise. It's my birthday coming up, so I've been treating myself. I've got some new tooling for the lathe as well, and hoping to get a quick change tool post so I can start fabricating some bits and bobs up for this. Alright, well, I'll sign off for the third time now. Hope everyone's well out there. Enjoy your week, and I'll try and get another video out to you soon. Alright guys and girls, bye for now.